Okay, guys, welcome back to Why Digitize episode 2. We looked at a lot of stuff in episode 1. If you are new here, kindly search for Why Digitize episode 1 in the playlist, but also drop a link also in the comment section for you to visit episode 1 because episode 1 helps you to appreciate episode 2. Alright, so let's go through the slides and let's call an end to the why digitize technical audio sandwich. Alright, so in episode 1 we did make mention of using a paper-based system to keep to store our patients insulins shots and also their diabetic sugar levels and other parameters that needs to be saved. And then we explained why we need to have that needed shift from a paper-based system to a computerized system. Now we want to use a computer, and the reason is because a computer, to me, or from my experience, is a box, and that box has some functions that makes it um, a weapon that can be used for mass destruction, but also carries a lot of potentials and a lot of benefit. And because a computer is based on input, processing, output, and storage. So in other words, it's a box sitting there. If you don't give it anything to work upon it, or if you don't engage the computer, you do not get anything out of the computer. So to engage it, that's when you get something out of the computer. That's as output, and you can store information on the computer too. So it's more of an information processing box, an information processing machine. It's more of also like a blender. If you put your if you have a blender, you don't um put any tomatoes to turn it from state A to tomato puree, it will always be there. So with a blender, you can transform that tomato that you have that's in one state or in one condition under certain um, temperatures or under certain constraints defined by it at one state. You can change it to a different state and use it for something useful. So that's why we want to use a computer for the sake of one, processing of information, two, storage. And if we talk about storage too, we have databases. Databases are softwares that will definitely persist your information. I wouldn't want to go into the technical nitty-gritties of databases, but I'll just say that database persist your information as compared to using a paper-based system. If you look at the cons associated with the paper system in terms of disaster, with the database, you can back up your data. If your computer even gets um, hit with a disaster like flood um, or fire outbreak, the database will still be accessible because the database is like a client server model. In other words, like visiting a website somewhere. So the database can still be accessed if you have the right parameters, and the database is not on a local but has been replicated on different databases on a master to slave configuration. All these are very technical, but databases persist data for a very long time. That's how you're able to Google some information that you need from 2009, 2000, 2005, because some people have kept that information for a very long time and they've submitted their information and it's being hosted on people's computers. So the data is still available. So if you still want to listen to Michael Jackson music, you still have access to Michael Jackson music because when you go to YouTube, YouTube is a database of videos and music. So a database persists your information for a very long time. So the cons associated with paper-based system are being handled as discussed in the Why Digitize episode 1. And then if we talk about accessibility and convenience, the internet is a great vehicle. And the internet is, when you say the internet, you are just saying that you are accessing people's computers, but you are doing it over the web. Yep, that's how I understand the internet. It's more technical than that. There's a philosophical side of it, and then also there's also the infrastructure side of it in terms of the cables that are being laid underwater or under the sea, sorry, the ocean to be specific, and how it gets to telcos and it gets to you as the end user. So the internet is basically people's you accessing people's machines, but they have given you access, and it's being that access is being granted on the internet on because of that infrastructure that has been laid, or those cables that have been laid in the ocean that connects computers together by the help of computer networking. That one is a different domain, but all this comes together to help you access the internet. So the internet will help us in terms of convenience and accessibility. So if a doctor wants to access information, he can go to the internet and it becomes convenient. We'll explain how that one also works. And also the only con associated with the internet is if you don't have data. And if you don't have data, that's the only con. And even with that, too, there's a technology that you can use to handle the case of no data. And that technology is what we are currently working on so that you can still have access to your insulin records or your diabetic shots. Yep, and that technology is USSD. Let me just make mention of it, USSD. Yep, so what's important here is that we've made that shift, and then this, if you look close here, this is the image of the application that has been built and the solution that has been rendered. So in our next slide, we're going to visit the solution, and the solution can be found on this URL or this website. So a website has been built to make that information accessible. That table that you want to keep track of all your diabetes, sugar levels, and your insulin shot is all going to be done via this web application. So we are going to visit the web application, play with it, and we will discuss further as we engage it. So let's get rolling. So first off, I'll hit the URL, control plus click. Control plus, I can just double click it. Home. Okay, let me slide out from here and see if any web page has been opened. If not, we'll okay. We have a web page, and this is our web page. Isn't this so beautiful? Something that was on paper has now moved on to the internet. It's global, it's accessible, and I can still see my records. So let's start with adding a new insulin shot. So when we click on the add insulin shot, we are going to define the same parameters we had for using the paper system. So mostly you see we had 10 RBS, and there was an insulin soluble insulin of 20 units, and then the attendant was cold films. Alright, so we hit save and our information is going to be saved. And if you look below, you can definitely see the record we just added, and that's the last record, and then the time that insulin was administered and the personnel that administered it. This is just a general solution. The very technical people that are listening to me knows that we can do more than this, but from a end user perspective, it's meant for digitization, and the most important is that it has been done. It's no more on paper, it's being done on the web. That's what's important. And you can easily update the record. If you click on update, you can update what is supposed to be updated. You can't change the date and time that you took the insulin shot, because that one is being generated by the database, because you administered at this time. You don't want you to be entering the date and time that you administered the shot, but you can definitely change the fasting blood sugar and the fasting blood sugar. And then there are two parameters: the fasting blood sugar, and then I think it's a red blood sugar. I'm not sure of the params, but you can. That's what you can change, because you are using a device to pick or sample those parameters. So that's what you can definitely edit. So we said okay, it was 10, but no, we made it. We saw what we saw was 5, and now insulin. Um, we administered 15. I didn't do 20 because of certain reason. And then probably wasn't only cool films. Who wasn't cool films that administered it. It was yeah that did it. So we can save this record. Don't worry, just refresh it. This I'm handling this exception at the moment. So let's go back. So we can save it again. Right. So now you see that yeah was the one who administered it. The changes have been made. So our process has been digitized. Our process has been digitized. Alright, so let's continue with our slides. Alright, so you see that all this is being done via a link. So it's this link that's helping us to make our paper-based diabetes insulin chart more convenient, more accessible, and less prone to what disasters. With this link, you can share the link to anyone who wants to keep track of an insulin shot and also track his diabetes sugar level. And it's that simple. This one there has nothing to do with carrying like 20 papers or 15 sheets just to track a patient's diabetes sugar level. No, because of a link. Can you just imagine? I want us to even go into the database for us to see the information that we just or the record that we just added. So let me step out of the presentation and let's go to my SQL workbench. Don't worry about the exception that the error that you saw. Is a connection pooling error. It can easily be handled using some technical ways, but I haven't yet done that. Okay, so the URL or the link that we have is the test URL. So we are going to visit the test connection and confirm that we can find our records persisted in the database. So MySQL is our database that we are using. So this is the user, and we want to enter the password. So I'll put the password from a configuration file that I have for the web application. Okay, so code films. Let's go to code films and let's click on the DMC web app clear DBUAT VAS. We're going to open it with Notepad plus. So that's our username, our password, the host name, and then the database. So we are just going to copy the password. To those that have been thinking what's host name, what's password, MySQL is a client server. It works as a client server, or it's based on a client server model. In other words, it's like you accessing a web application, and then this is not running on local host. Those who are technically oriented to know what local host means. It's not running on my computer. It has been deployed on a certain platform online. That's Heroku, and Heroku is hosting the web application, and we are able to access the web application via a link that, the link is what we are using to access the web application, or the domain. I don't want to go into that, but just say link. And then the database also is being hosted, or is being catered for by another platform online, that's ClearDB. But you can view the data inside your MySQL workbench because of the client server model of MySQL. So you have the username. This is the service that's you visiting the actual database online, and that's the name of the host. So the host is not localhost. For those who are technically oriented, it has changed from localhost. I can actually show you where the database is online, so we'll look at that one too. So let's connect. We didn't test the connection. Don't worry. Let's connect. All right. Okay. So we are now in the MySQL workbench. Let's maximize this. And these are the schemas that define the table for our database. So this is the name of the database, and then these are the tables. The tables here, we have three tables: the insulin table, the insulin audit table, and then the patient table. The insulin table is what's similar to or analogous to our paper-based system. The schema or the structure defined on the database, defined on the paper system, is what we've replicated onto the database, because the database is also based on the table data structure, or there's a natural transformation of what we saw on paper to what we want the computer to do. Yeah, someone thought about that, so that's someone's discovery. All right, so let's confirm that we can view the record we just added. So I'm going to type some MySQL commands here to view all data in our database. So first of all, we have to use the database. So alright, so you can see that the database has been emphasized, or there has been an emphasis on it, and it's in dark black. Yeah, it has been emphasized. Don't worry, it has been emphasized. Alright. So now let's view all data in the table. And we're going to type the SQL command select. So the select star from insulin is a MySQL command, or MySQL statement we are going to execute so that we can view our record. Now is to view all records. So when I execute that using Control plus space, we will see that our data is now being persisted in the database. So the last record is what we just added. That was as the attendance, which we did some changes. The date and time that it also occurred. So you can see the date and time that it occurred, the insulin shot, and then the units of the insulin shot, and then the fasting blood sugar and the red blood sugar. Yeah, so our data is being persistent in the database. That's what's important. There's no more people. Are we going to light fire on this to burn this? No, it's persistent on the database, and the database is also not sitting on local host. It's sitting on another person's server somewhere. So yes, the problem has been handled. So digitization is very important, and digitization of a process has helped us to have our information what less prone to disasters. It has also become accessible, and it's more convenient now because of a link. It's based on a link, and also any other form of changes that anyone makes to the insulin record, we can view it in our database. So when we go to the insulin audit table, we realize that we can see any changes that has occurred on our database. If it was a paper-based system, you wouldn't even know the person who really changed it, and your the appearance of the sheet is going to be very messy. But when we look at what we did with the update, it was very smooth. So let's see the changes that can also take place. That's if someone does make changes to our insulin record. So I'm going to type the MySQL command for that too as well. Alright, let's enter the password again. Okay, so we realize that we do see that there was an update that was done, and was done by Ya. And then we see the old insulin record. Sorry, yeah, it has been sorted out, so it has come up now. 44 ID 44. You see the change time, the change date, the time. Oh, our time is not being updated. Don't worry, I'll look at that later. But what's important is that we can track record of what was first administered. So we had 10 at first, but we changed it to 5. It was of 20, but we've changed it to what? 15. And then yeah was the attendant, and it was an update action. So we can basically keep track of everything that happens on our insulin record, and then nobody can hide anything from us. If I'm a doctor, I can actually see this. And going to be a cool film on why we need an admin portal. Sometimes in web application development, you hear that we need an admin portal. There used to be this portal for one simple application. You can have like 3 portals, and you ask yourself why. It also because you can't trust end users. There's nothing like trust based on where you're working. If you're working in a bank, you can't just create one portal for you and say this guy won't do no wrong. No, it has to be monitored. So that was the help of databases to help us to keep track of things that um, humanly we wouldn't have done based on trust. Yes. Okay, so I'll say basically we've actually solved. Sorry, we've actually solved our problem. And this link, I'll share it. I'll drop it in the description. You can actually access this link to on your mobile phone, and that makes it also very interesting to use a web application, because with this link it can be accessed on your mobile phone. If you have data, you can actually access the insulin chart and add the record you want to add. So I made mention of showing where the database is being hosted online. So let me just go there. Let me pull this from my Chrome experience. That's my browsing history. And ClearDB, ClearDB database. I'm just hoping that don't ask me to enter my username and password, but I think my session has expired. Oh, I may have to log in. Okay, so let me just do this for the sake of. Alright. So let's compare. Okay, I don't have to log in. Right. So to view the database, so I may have to log in where it's shown online. So let's compare this with the vars here. I did some multiple runs, so I want to be sure I'm using the right. Okay, so this is a different username. So let's actually log in for the sake of viewing what we are using. So let me copy the same vars from this file. The user is still the same, and the password. In. Alright, so you can see where we are logged in. So you can see that this our database that we are using is found in the US. And that's at the eastern side of the US. So, and then this is our database. If you compare the name of this database to what you also have in MySQL Workbench, you realize that it's the same database that we are using, but so if you compare the name of the database, this is the same name that we are using online. So that's to confirm that yes, your data is persisted, it's not lost, it's accessible, and then the convenience is via the link. So if you want to view the data set, unless you log into the MySQL Workbench, and you can actually view all the write and read actions that have taken place on the database. And then I made mention of backups, so you can actually do a backup if you need to. Yep. So yeah, so yeah, and also there was some cluster stuff I made mention of. That's technical with databases, but it's being replicated in not only one side, so you don't lose your data. These are the cluster nodes, so and this is the main host, so you don't lose your data. It's all persisted one way or another. Alright, so before I end this code film, I also want to show you the source code that makes all this work. So let's go and view the source code, just to make you guys know that it's not magic, it's all work. In other words, if there's an issue or there's a problem and it's can be handled by technology based on the facets of how the computer works, input, output, and processing, then there's definitely some programming that can go on to get rid of or to seize the operation of one technology from working. So let's just walk through the code. No display here, just a show of the solution. Then we call it an end for this code film. Okay, sometimes starting Eclipse delays on my machine, but it will definitely come up. Please, if you have any question, do feel free to ask in the comment section. This is just a technical audio sandwich. It's for you to have a mental consumption and appreciation of technical things, and I think I've done my best in showing you why this is very necessary. So I'll leave the link also in the comments section so you can access it from your laptops and also from your mobile phones. So if you look at our code, let's look at our code. So this is the code that makes everything work. First, you have to configure the web application. Then you have to define controllers. Then you have to define a DAO. You have to define your entity, and you have to define some services. The basic understanding is every web application needs some form of configuration. And then every web application, if it's an interactive system, is based on the MVC pattern or the MVC architecture. That's the architectural style you select to solve a problem. There's going to be a documentation for this. It's actually ready as a slide, and I'll see how best to share it, and I'll put it in the comment section. So that's just been for this code film. If you definitely want to see some code, you can see some code here. Yep, so there's just some code for the curious ones, some code for the curious ones too. Yeah. So the controller really controls the logic. The entity is the model. That's the noun. That's the real life object you want to do some operations on. And then services and DAOs are some form of software architecture techniques or principles you stick to make your code more clean. Yeah. So that has been for this code film. So we'll call it an end to the Why Digitize code film. The necessary resources will be put in the comment section, but you can still ask, so in the description section you can still ask your questions and reach out wherever you have some form of misunderstanding of things. Thank you so much for your time, and stay tuned for more cool films, and there's going to be more technical audio sandwich for your mental consumption and appreciation. Thank you. This has been Cool Films, and we are the doing team, and we are the team that makes sure that what was existing before doesn't exist as it's supposed to be. It gets transformed.